And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone and Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island. And today we're sharing our best bets for NFL Week 11, College Football Week 12, as well as Fraud Watch for 2 teams in the NFL and 2 teams in college football that unexpectedly are in the top conversation for some of the best teams in their respective levels. So we're going to get to that. Before we get there, Sean, where can our listeners make money by fading us and actually following me, but more so fading you? Where can they go?
Well, I tell them about the beautiful betting sponsor. Why don't you take a look at the final bullet point and try to draw your conclusions before segment, I'd call it C, of today's show. BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. As we're taping, we are 2 hours away from Thursday Night Football. Eagles, 4-point favorites over the Manders. I teased it down. That is the bet that I took tonight. You can get these nice, tasty lines at BetOnline. With the largest selection of odds and everything football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
You just love doing the read with dated information. And by the way, somebody commented, our guy Steve commented that I refuse to let Sean get through the read. I let you get through it, but you love doing the read. Here's the challenge. I think you should do the read for weeks or games from 2 weeks ago. I think you should going forward.
That's truly counterproductive. Okay, this is me.
Steve's keep it up.
How quick? Oh, what do you think? You can't get this show up by what?
But
8 o'clock?
That's not what it is. Most people are going to be tuning in tomorrow morning, throughout the day, on Friday, after the game was played.
I'm pitching.
So why don't we give them a line?
I want to get them a little appetized to do some betting later on in the week, pal. All right, this is what I'm betting on Thursday. Watch me hit a big fat winner, and then maybe you can hit a winner on Saturday at BetOnline.
Well, I'm doing a lot better than you are.
You are. It's frustrating.
All right, let's talk frauds. Who's the most fraudulent team in the NFL? We're going to pick 2 teams that we think have been really unexpectedly good, and we're trying to evaluate, are they actually fraudulent or are they legit? The first one I got for you here, Sean, the Minnesota Vikings. They had a really hot start to the year. They were undefeated. They've come back down to earth. And now some people are questioning, are they really more of an average team? Where do you sit on this? Are you in on the fraud watch? Are they frauds or not?
They are on fraud watch simply because of their last 2 games. You lose to the Lions, I'm not going to knock you. That was a crazy win for the Lions. You beat the Texans by 27 points. That inherits a lot of goodwill for the next 4 or 5 weeks. You beat the Packers. You beat the 49ers. They have a fantastic resume. But beating the Jaguars by 5 points and the litany of red zone interceptions by Sam Darnold was really uninspiring. I don't like Sam Darnold coming back down to earth. Sam Darnold, the first 6 weeks of the season, was incredibly fun. But as most NFL players regress to the mean, we have to be realistic. I think we all kind of knew in the back of our minds it was always going to be in the NFC North. Lions 1, Packers 2, Vikings 3. Now, as it shakes out, it's a tight race. Lions are running away with it, though. I am not worried about the Vikings in the long run, but right now they are definitely on fraud watch, and this upcoming game against the Titans worries me because they can't throw in another loser-esque performance against a basement team.
So you mentioned there the big thing for me. I'm with you on this. If I had to lean one side or the other, I'm leaning fraud. The hot start that they had, it was really exciting. We were all juiced up on Sam Darnold, and I think that Darnold has shown that he's good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL for a team. It feels like eventually that will get turned over to J.J. McCarthy because he has come back down to reality. Where you mentioned their defense is playing great. They are doing a really great job. Brian Flores is coaching well enough to earn himself another coaching gig after this year, potentially, if he is going to be in the upcoming interview cycle, which he should be. But offensive production for them has been brutal. We saw a bunch of performances at the start of the year where it looked like there was so much potential, and we knew that Justin Jefferson was such a premier talented receiver, and we know that he's probably the best guy in the league at receiver. But Aaron Jones and that whole group, it has not been to the degree that we have expected. And they've really come back down to earth because right now they're 15th in EPA per play. So they're really, really hitting that middle ground of what they were supposed to actually be producing. I'm not in on them. I think that we're going to start to see that they're more of a late wild card team and that the Lions are just heads above them, that they're going to prove that separation gap.
Yeah, it didn't help Aaron Jones' questionable injury status. He was carted off last week, and then he came back on the field. He's been like the linchpin of this offense. And then if he goes down, you have Ty Chandler and Cam Akers, which is just not helping you one bit. And then I'm not going to put an injury as a main reason for fraud watch, but it is a possible indicator of fraud incoming. Another fraud watch piece. What the hell's been going on with Jordan Addison? He has been a ghost on the field.
He was so not locked in the offseason. You always see these guys. People always talk about in the NFL, especially how much work you put in the offseason will always translate to how you start the season and how you play throughout the season. All the crap that he got into, there was the driving incident that happened with him, and then there's pictures that he's posting on his Instagram story of him out and about not long after that. I just didn't seem like he was very locked in for this upcoming year and for him to play at his highest level. It's a great point. I feel like that's probably one of the biggest driving factors is that we thought that Addison was supposed to be this premier secondary receiver. And outside of Justin Jefferson, there hasn't really been somebody else.
Over the last 5 games, his highest receiving yardage is 66, and the most receptions he's had is 5 in a game. That's not great. He's supposed to be a true number 2 receiver. That is really indicative of some flawed offensive scheming, because I really think that he does have the talent. We've seen when the bursts come, he's almost unstoppable. He's shifty, he's elusive, but it is not going well for him lately. And I think the Vikings are a team that needs a true second option, with Hawkinson still trying to work back into the fold.
I'm not off on his offseason antics, right? I'm not missing something.
No, he was all over the place in the offseason.
Okay. Just I always try to be careful that I wasn't misremembering that. Another team, though, Sean, that could be classified as fraudulent is the Arizona Cardinals. They are one of the top teams right now in the NFC West. They could run away and win that division because the 49ers have been slow to get going. The Rams have been super banged up, and the Seahawks have been super inconsistent and up and down. Kyler Murray playing his best ball. Where do you stand, fraud or not?
Okay. This is so hard because you want Kyler Murray to not be fraud, but then you look at this team that can throw out the worst performance you ever seen in 1 week and turn around and beat the Niners. And we saw that in weeks 4 and 5, losing to the Commanders by 30 points and then beating the 49ers by 1. I don't think they're frauds. I'm shocked to find myself saying that. And maybe it's because Marvin Harrison Jr. has shown me just enough to be a dynamic target on the outside. The defense, sure, they haven't been able to really cultivate any of the highly drafted talents on the defensive side outside of Budda Baker. And that's just a fact. They draft these guys. They're supposed to be stellar, supposed to be phenomenal athletes, especially at linebacker. You get like no return. But when Kyler Murray is on, and I think he's been on more than he's been off this year, which has been leagues better than the last couple years, right? Like he's just doubling up his production. It feels like he's got more control, more command. I'm going not fraud in case he does stay in this flow state of godly ball placement and maneuverability in the pocket.
You know what? I'm going to say that they're fraud. I'm not buying into this, and here's why. I like the way that Kyler Murray's been playing, and I think that his production has vastly improved, and we're starting to see that version of him that won the Offensive Rookie of the Year that could go on to be one of the better quarterbacks, top 10 quarterback in the NFL, because he's just so unique. But we got to pay attention to who have they ganged up on in this recent string of games that has placed them where they are? They beat the Jets 31-6, who we all know are a dumpster fire. They have massive issues all over that organization since firing Robert Saleh. They beat the Bears, who can't move the ball, who only mustered 9 points, and they only eked out a 1-point victory over the Miami Dolphins, who, if I remember correct, Tua was back in that game, but still a close win after Tua returned after a long period of time off, and then a 2-point victory over the Chargers. They lost to the Packers pretty handedly back on October 13th. So I'm just a little bit iffy here. I don't think that the games in this recent stretch where they have started to build steam is against teams that really reflect that of an impressive resume. I know this isn't college football. You win your football games, you go to the playoffs, and you can win playoff games. It doesn't matter who you're squaring off with. But this upcoming stretch where they've got the Seahawks twice, they've got the Vikings, that to me is going to be the real telling perspective and context needed to know, are they a top 4 team, let's say, in the NFC? What does help them, they have a really crap remainder of their schedule, though. They play the Patriots on the 15th, they play the Panthers on the 22nd, and then they've got the Rams that are super banged up. So there is a very, very realistic chance that no matter what happens here, that they're going to win the NFC West.
4 divisional games left. I love it for the theater, but for Fraud Watch theater, that is yucky. Because the Rams versus the Cardinals is always a mess. The 49ers versus the Cardinals is always a mess. I think we'll really know the mettle of this Cardinals team after that second Seahawks game. This first one is just going to be feel each other out. Second one, go get some revenge, or go actually keep the gas on the pedal and beat them twice. If they beat the Seahawks twice, officially not frauds. You got to be worried over those last 4 weeks of the season. If they split, they'll be on Fraud Watch until week 17.
All right, Sean, let's jump on over to breaking down our best bets for the week. Let's start with college. I went 1-2, but I still did better than Sean, who went 0-3. 20-19 on the season. We're chipping away at the lead that Sean has. 19-20 on the year, 49% correct. We're going to finish above 500. I can feel it. Team Joe is going to win this. What's your first bet?
I hate college betting. Last week, it put me in such a sour mood. 0-3 is disgusting, especially as I bolstered a lead over your sorry ass. My first bet here,
0-3 is lame.
It's really a bad feeling coming into a bets preview show, knowing that I'm coming off a defeated week. My first pick, Nebraska getting 9 versus USC. I'm going to give out 3 meat and potatoes plays this week. I'm not going to hit you with some fancy schmancy numbers because they've done me dick over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to give you good team, bad team, willing to fight team. Let's think about the offseason.
I don't think any of these picks that you have even fit that definition, but go ahead.
Oh, yes, they do. Nebraska. Tell me there's a state that doesn't eat more meat and potatoes than that state, especially in Lincoln.
This is quite literally meat and potatoes. This is not by the definition of like just simple, tried and true. These are the just like nuts and bolts picks. You're literally saying Nebraska, they eat a lot of meat and potatoes.
This is what I'm going with. I'm going with farm raised.
Okay, explain your logic.
Nebraska, I still think is playing for pride this year. I think that they want to set up some momentum for next season. Are they going to make any legitimate noise for the rest of the year? No, you'd be silly to even think that. But they're facing off versus an even bigger disappointment, a team on a boat 10,000 miles away from any shoreline. That's USC. Their offense is up and down as much as it can be. We were lauding that defense through 3 weeks. It was a weighted lauding of that defense because they were so god-awful last year. They've regressed still. They're an uninspiring bunch. Nebraska, I think they need to get some momentum through the rest of the year. They're getting 9 against a team that I wouldn't give a USC a favorite in the Big Ten for the rest of the year, given their play and their performance so far. I like Nebraska as the underdogs. Give them to me.
My first pick, I'm going to go with LSU -4.5 versus Florida. Florida right now, they cannot rely on their third string quarterback. They have been so so horrible to watch. They put out a great game against Georgia, and they've had a couple of competitive performances. But outside of that, they've been cooked pretty aggressively by competent quarterbacks in various matchups. I think Garrett Nussmeier, more importantly, Brian Kelly needs a get-back game. There's still a mathematical possibility that they could play in the SEC championship game. They're going to want to win this. They're going to take all their frustrations out. It is the typical Brian Kelly bit where you lose the game that everybody needed you to win with the season on the line, and then you just unload on some poor soul, and that poor soul this week is going to be Florida. What's your second one?
My second pick, spite pick, big spite pick coming here. BYU.
Taking one of my VSiN picks again, by the way. But speaking of spite, the way I got back at you for taking a bunch of VSiN picks was me going 1-4 on my VSiN picks. That's screw you.
I heard you chopping it up with Serralo last night before the show, before I rested my head and missed your precious picks, by the way, talking about your 1-4 week. Regardless, BYU, I'm going to ride with this team of weird, obscure destiny in the Big 12. I'm not even certain that they're the best Big 12 team. I actually would wager they're probably not. But they keep on winning. And Kansas, they screwed me bad. And I'm not going to let up on them. They're going to lose. Kansas sucks. They stink. They're bad this year. And the only time that I picked against them, they won that game by like 20. So I am going revenge time, BYU versus bad Kansas team.
I just realized we skipped the college fraud pick. So we're going to do that at the end. Wow, we are bad at remembering to do shit because BYU was one of those fraud teams. We're going to get to that at the end. My second pick, I put that on VSiN, so I don't disagree with that one. South Carolina minus 12.5 versus Mizzou. South Carolina's defensive line we have seen has completely taken over games. The way that they played against Oklahoma, I think, is going to show up here against Missouri, whose offensive line has been a mess. Their quarterback situation is even messier with an unhealthy Brady Cook. We don't know if he's going to play. If it's Drew Pine, no shot that they're going to score any points. Give me the Cox. Cox, 12.5, covering against Mizzou.
Look, anyone that said you never supported South Carolina is dead wrong. You've taken them multiple times this year. Joe DeLeone, noted South Carolina and Shane Beamer fan.
Nope, that part's not true, but finish.
My final pick, Illinois, given 3 versus Michigan State. A team in Illinois that had at one point a little bit of hope this year. The Fighting Fernellis, I think, can beat this stupid Michigan State team. I'm sick of Michigan State. They've just been there all year. They haven't made any noise. They haven't made any impact. Illinois at least had a couple spurts in the beginning of the year. I want Altmaier to throw for 6 touchdowns. Because I picked him, he'll throw for 3 and get 3 interceptions and get pulled into half. That's fine with me. But right now, I like Illinois giving 3. It's just a makes sense pick in my mind.
My last pick, I'm going to take UCLA plus 3.5 versus Washington. This UCLA team is hot. This Washington team is middling, not having to make a cross-country flight, that they're going to be staying on the West Coast. I believe this is also a Friday game, and they've got a little bit of a heater going on in these Friday games. We saw the way that they played against Iowa this past week. Their defense is showing up. Their run game is showing up. They're turning the ball over like crazy, which is extremely chaotic. But I think that the Sean Foster squad is at least good enough to cover that 3 points and lose by a field goal.
You don't think the team will be distracted by the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul bout that's happening on Friday night?
Yeah,
as well?
I'm sure that they will definitely be distracted. NFL, your boy went 3-0 again. How do we keep getting away with this? How do we keep this man over here loves to tell you that reality is going to set in at a certain point. No. Not only are we doing well this year after another 3-0 week, 22-8, 73%. The success keeps rolling. Sean sucks. He went 2-1, which was a good week for him. One of his few. 15, 14-1, 50%. Is that 50%?
Yeah, I'm not counting the push as a win, pal. I'm just counting it as
no, but 15, you're over 50%.
I have 15 bets won out of 30 total picks. The push just goes in as a push. Oh, do you want to get me to 51.25%?
Yeah, I'm giving you a little bit of a nudge. Do the math right. If you're going to do the math wrong on either of us, even if it's hurting you,
still 50, pal.
It's 50. You're 52%. I'm helping you out here. You suck so bad. I'm trying to help you. You don't want any help?
You're going to catch a friendly in the hallway after this. You keep on pandering to me about the push bet.
My first pick, Bears plus 5.5 versus the Packers. Now, this is an undescribable, unquantifiable trend that I love to bet. When coaches are fired, when quarterbacks are benched, when something crazy happens, there's always a bounce back the following week. There's always some sort of a reset because there's a different variable in there. They fired Shane Waldron. He was a horrible offensive coordinator. I don't know if things are going to be so much better that they could come out and win this game. But the Packers have been turnover prone. The Bears defense has been smothering at times, but they've been on the field a ton, so they haven't been playing as good as they could be playing. I think that the Bears bounce back here, and if they lose, it's going to be by a field goal or less.
You know what? Based on your trend this season, it would only make sense.
2-0 this year. That logic pick is 2-0 this year. By the way,
it would only make sense for Matt LaFleur to have his first loss against the Bears in his entire tenure as a Packers head coach happen this week. I just can't believe it. I can't believe you're just willing this into existence.
Wait, what week did Saleh get fired?
Was that like week 7? It wasn't that long ago. I think it was early October, week 7.
So Saleh's the only one that I didn't take. I don't think that came to fruition.
Jordan Love's going to throw 2 picks. It's going to be a close game. God damn it.
What's your first pick?
My first pick, the Colts getting 3.5 versus the Jets. This is not about Anthony Richardson coming back off the bench. It is not about that. This is about the Jets and their in-week game plan and practice plan, which is horrendous for working into week 11. Joe, did you see any of this that was transpiring? Jeff Ulbrich, the new Jets head coach, is going through tackling fundamentals all over again right now. And he's got folks doing full pads this week.
Good.
This is week 11. The Jets are 3-7, I believe. That can't happen. You do this when your coach gets fired a week 5, and you still got a fighting chance. They are cooked. They're done for. I'm sure the players are laughing and scolding that dude behind the scenes. It's a bad vibes Jets team right now, and it's led by that old dog that you just can't refuse to put down yet in Aaron Rodgers, the mopey horse, the sad man with the hat. It's Aaron Rodgers versus the world, as it always is, except he turned everyone against him this time. Colts getting 3.5. The Jets suck, so does Aaron Rodgers.
Put it on a quote graphic. Sean Anderson wants to euthanize Aaron Rodgers.
If he didn't look like he wanted to euthanize himself, I wouldn't be saying that.
Vikings -6 versus the Titans is my second pick. I've had so much success picking against against the Titans, rather. I know that we just called the Vikings a little bit fraudulent this year because they have slowed down a little bit, but this is a bounce back situation. You played like crap against the Jaguars. You need a bit of a mental reset. The Titans are god awful. I don't trust them. Give me the Vikings to play a good defensive game and for them to win by 7 or more.
You know, you should have just, when we were having the big Anthony Richardson debate, you should have carved into me because I never mentioned that Will Levis is the worst quarterback I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know. One of them's actually bad. I don't know what the heck just happened. It's trying to change my keyboard to Dutch.
No, I see you're trying to change the percentages over on some picks over here.
I didn't touch
where
anything.
Your little cursor is.
I didn't touch anything.
Yeah, Will Levis is the worst, most chaotically bad.
He never had a good Anthony Richardson. At least you watch like the highlights. You're like, wow, like if he could do that more, this dude would be unbelievably good.
Yeah.
Like he'd be the best quarterback in the NFL. But it's so the lows are so much lower than the highs that it causes the headache. Will Levis has never had a good play.
He's all low.
It's all low, and it's also like rambunctiously low. It's like, oh, okay, he's just kind of running out of the back of the end zone. The ball's just flopping around wherever it feels like it's going to go, and it's not going to end up actually going anywhere. All right, well, what's your second pick?
My second pick, let's go with destiny here. Let's go with the inevitable. People are calling it dark magic. They're calling it evil spells, witchcraft, because the lady in the box, I get it. But the inevitable Kansas City Chiefs are inevitable this year. It's the worst team that they've fielded in the last 3 seasons. The last 2, they've won Super Bowls, and they have a phenomenal record. They haven't slipped. They keep winning games. They're playing the Buffalo Bills, who love to find a way to just choke it up against them, who love to find a way to fold like that cheap chaise lounge. And they will. The Chiefs are going to win this either on some BS or legitimately. Until they lose, I'm going to keep on picking the Chiefs. I don't care that they would be like 1-7 in 1-score games. I saw that graphic getting tossed up. They're winning 1-score games. That matters. You're giving me a 1-score spread here. I like it. Chiefs getting 1.
That's not a primetime game.
425. I don't know. It's fine. We get Chargers Bengals.
Roger, what are we doing here? Roger, what are we doing here? Who was in charge of scheduling that? The late night game, though, is Chargers versus Bengals. I'm going to take the Chargers -1.5 versus the Bengals. This Chargers team has been, I don't want to say they're hot, but they have been competitive enough lately that I think that they could close out a tight game against the Bengals. This is also a late night game, and it is going to be one of those body clock situations that I love to refer to for the West Coast situation. I know it's not going to be, actually, it's going to be 5 o'clock. Wait, is this, why am I mixing myself up here? Is it in Los Angeles? I'm screwing this up. Chargers.
It's in Los Angeles.
Okay. Ignore the body clock comment. I'm still sticking with that, though. Chargers -1.5.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to knock a Chargers or a Bengals bet in this game. It's fine. It's a pick 'em. It's Burrow versus Herbert. Let's see what happens. My final pick. Let's go with domination versus what is it? What's the sub? What are subs called?
Vanilla.
No. What? Hold on.
Oh, no. Wait. Vanilla means you're not into.
Yeah.
Into
Submissions. Okay.
Submissives.
Yeah. Okay. Pardon that. Lions giving 14 to the Jags. The Jags are probably going to be rolling out Mac Jones again this week. Trevor Lawrence, it's time to have a real conversation about his toughness. Injury to the non-throwing hand. And you're letting Mac Jones start for your squad. Embarrassing.
You hate Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, he sucks. He's bad. He has regressed since his rookie year. He's regressed since his second year. And yeah, he's just not good. And the only playoff game he won was against the Chargers team, which is Atlanta West, who choked away a 20-point lead. If you're the starting quarterback and you're not going to be sitting there playing in the end of the season on this bad team with a non-throwing hand injury, seeing what the likes of Justin Herbert have done, where he's looking like the Terminator at the end of the first movie with half his body charred off after some games, still trying to go back out the next week, I'm going to feel a certain type of way about you. More importantly, I feel a certain type of way about the Detroit Lions. They're an absolute wagon tank unit that refuses to stop scoring. They refuse to stop winning. It is maybe the best team in football versus the worst team in football. 2 scores isn't enough. I love 14. I would have taken it at 21.
All right, let's circle back on Fraud Watch for college teams because your boy does not know how to host a show. We started off the show with teams in the NFL that were unexpectedly good, and we were trying to evaluate if they were legit or if they were frauds. 2 teams that we got here for college. BYU and SMU. They played each other. BYU beat SMU. They're undefeated so far this season. But I got to be honest, Sean, here. I'm leaning fraud on BYU. I think that there has been such a push to support this BYU team because they're a fun story. They weren't expected to be good this year. They've been just so scrappy and good, and they've gotten and fought through every single game. There's a lot of games on their schedule, and I know that they played really good against Kansas State at home at night, and I know that they blew the doors off of a overrated Arizona team that came into the year and wasn't very good. But the Big 12 is not as competitive, it is a very competitive conference, but there is not as much talent as some people realize. It is devoid compared to these other conferences, even the ACC, of top-level talent. Colorado is the only team that's really going and trotting out there a bunch of NFL dudes that are going to get opportunities not only with their premier stars as first-round picks, but there's plenty of guys on their defensive line that are going to get chances as well. I don't see a reason to believe that BYU, with these close wins over Oklahoma State at home, against Utah this past week that needed ref intervention, the close game that they had against Baylor where they blew a massive lead, and then a 3-point win over BYU or over SMU for BYU has been what has propped themselves up this entire time, and it has done the reverse for SMU, which I'm going to get to in a second. I just think that we are giving them so much praise for 2 wins that really are not as reputable as we think that they are.
Yeah, this BYU squad, it's not going to flash out on the screen at you. You're not going to sit there and say, "Oh wow, there's a guy that I got to watch some film on him after. I got to look up where he went to high school and what the pipeline was for him. How did BYU get him?" No, it's just they're just playing pretty sound football, which I'm not going to complain about. But there were 2 games this year where I immediately put it tucked in the back of my mind in a little filing cabinet, a little fraud filing cabinet. And now I'm getting my key out. I'm going to open that up, pull it back, and let's see, week 5 versus Baylor. That was a damning game for them. To see them stomp out Baylor and watch Baylor put up like 21 straight points when it should have been locked and sealed against a bad Baylor team, unfortunate. And then, what's this now, week 8? Yeah, Oklahoma State. That game was an absolute joke. They should have dog-walked Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has stunk this year, and then they decided to make it all close. I was at the bar watching it melting down, having a girl yap in my ear. Joe had already left. It was a complete conundrum.
Thankfully.
It was an absolute disaster evening. They didn't cover. They wasn't even close. They probably should have lost the game to a bad and mediocre at best Oklahoma State team. I'm going to have to agree with you that BYU is on the national scale fraudulent, but for a weaker Big 12 this year, I think they're treading water just fine.
SMU, you also are fraudulent. I'm not buying into this. Like, seriously, we have done this stupid dance where I hear all the folks that don't want the Big 10 and the SEC to dominate the discussion want to find ways to include everybody. SMU has been great. They just moved up to the Power 4 level, and they've played very competitively in the ACC. But we got to dig in here. Who are they beating? They're playing the back end of the ACC for the most part. They have 1 ranked win at the current moment over Louisville. Pitt is no longer ranked. And on top of this, their singular loss that people keep pushing. Well, they've got this loss against BYU, and look how highly ranked BYU is. They're holding each other up. It's this very feeble Jenga tower that they're just holding each other up on very tight spots that I'm not going with it with SMU. I'm supposed to get excited by the fact that they beat up on a defensive list TCU team. They beat the crap out of Florida State, who everybody's beating up on. They won a 1-score game against Louisville, which is a good win. Stanford, congrats. You beat Stanford. You threw
What's wrong with Stanford?
You had them. They're not good. That's what's wrong with Stanford. Duke, you turned the ball over 1 million times and you eked that thing out in overtime by 1 point. That is a lot of late game luck. And Pitt is another quality win, but it's not as good of a win as you thought it was and as you're going to continue to push it to be. It just feels like there's a lot of mental gymnastics that are going into this. In the comments on this, Wyatt's going to clip this out, and the comments on this are going to be, what are you talking about? How dare you say that we did X, Y, and Z? We beat up on Pitt. Pitt wasn't that good. They lost to UVA. You are living off of a false narrative that every idiot created because everybody needed to be included. They go to the playoff. They get their asses kicked by whatever SEC or Big Ten team they are scheduled to play.
I like SMU. I like the ponies. I like it.
Screw you.
I like SMU. I want to see SMU play Miami in the ACC championship game. Am I saying there should be 2 ACC teams this year?
Killed.
Probably not. But I'd rather see SMU versus Miami or those 2 get in over Clemson because Clemson has just been a disappointment. Cade Klubnik is boring, and for that, that makes SMU less fraudulent in my mind. I like that they beat Pitt. Put some respect on Pitt. They've been playing well. I would argue that teams at 15,
that's another team that
25,
wasn't playing anyone. This is the whole point. It's this stupid circle of this team didn't play anyone, but then they played this team, and then they also didn't play anyone. So all these teams have good records, and then they beat each other, and then one stands remaining. And that this is this stupid circle of sucky teams that make themselves look better than they actually are.
That's the SEC. That's what the SEC does.
No, it's not.
They play
No,
The
not. It's the complete opposite.
Plays four.
It is the complete opposite.
The SEC schedules 3 gimme wins a year. They play 2 unranked SEC teams, and they play 3 dog water
But they all
ranked SEC
beat
teams.
each other. They all beat each other. Mid-level SEC teams could beat the top-level SEC teams because it's far more competitive of a conference. That doesn't happen in the ACC. That doesn't happen in the Big 12.
I think Pitt could have beat Florida this year. I'm certain.
I don't agree with that.
That's crazy talk,
I
Joe.
don't agree with that.
At Pitt at their strongest versus Florida at their strongest this season, Pitt might walk away with that one.
I don't want to hear it from a guy who wrote down that he ate a plant-based sandwich.
I did not eat it. I still have it, actually.
Wait, okay, what happened here?
Okay, so I had a haircut at 4, and I got off the path at like 3:15. So I wasn't going to walk back here and then walk back to the barber shop, which I just would have stayed walking. So I said, all right, I'm a bit hungry. Let me go get a little sandwich. Let me get some food before we tape. Need a little bit of energy, and I got some time to kill. I walk into the deli that you and I both frequent, and there was
which one?
What's the gangster's name? The one
Luca Brasi?
Yeah. I walk into Luca Brasi's.
Okay,
and then
I wouldn't have thought that place has plant-based.
It's cold out, so I'm like, let me get a hot sandwich. I'm freezing. My foot hurts. I want a hot sandwich. I asked for a Reuben, and there's like this big sign right in front of me. And it says Prime Roots, and it's just got all these pictures of the sandwiches, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm just looking Reuben, and I see Reuben. I say, all right, let me get this Prime Roots Reuben. And I'm thinking, oh, Prime Roots Italy, something like that. Maybe we got some real nice.
This was so
sandwich.
avoidable. Oh, this was so avoidable.
I hardly read it, and then
Prime Roots.
I started looking closer.
Where you got duped.
And I saw that Prime Roots is a plant-based deli meat provider, fake meat provider. And I noticed that as they were like halfway through my sandwich, and I had to flag the guy down and say, hey, can I get a real Reuben, please? He says, yeah, okay, fine. But I'm going to have to, you're going to have to buy this one. I said, fine, I'll buy that one.
Oh, so you have a gross plant-based sandwich.
Do you want it? I got a full plant-based sandwich, Reuben, just sitting in my backpack.
No, that sounds
right now.
Awful and disgusting.
I didn't even open it. I was hoping that they were just going to keep it and give it to a stray dog or pigeons afterwards, because I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
To a stray dog. I think if you gave it to a homeless person, they would say no, screw you.
If I gave that sandwich to if I was homeless,
they'd throw it back.
And someone gave it to me, I would have stood up and Randy Johnson that sandwich right at the back of their heads. I wouldn't care. I'm homeless. But at the same point, you're giving me plant-based. That's logic. That gives me no nutrition. That doesn't pick me up. I'm already feeling bad. I'm homeless. Now you're giving me some BS.
Like stringy and weird. You never want to eat a plant-based sandwich.
Wouldn't even. I'm not going to touch it. It doesn't matter ever. I was just so embarrassed because they're asking me questions and I had my AirPods in. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, Swiss cheese. And I'm like, I think they were kind of telling me it was off. I didn't.
You're probably the only person who's ever ordered that in an Italian
I don't
deli.
know what I was. I was
big guy wants to eat.
Yeah,
plant-based.
I couldn't take the signals.
That thing's been sitting in there. That block. It's probably a flat block. It's probably
so disgusting.
Just a cubic meat mass that has been sitting there for 4 months because nobody's touched it.
I tell you what, the regular corned beef Reuben, incredible.
Okay,
it was fantastic. I bought 2 Reubens, ate one. I'll put the other one under Joe's bed tonight while he's sleeping, and he's going to come back from Montana with a nice little scent in there.
All right, we'll be back, folks. We'll talk to you later. Enjoy the rest of your week.